Okay, so now we want to take a look at another really important part of our conditional logic, and that is going to be else if. Now, a lot of times we're going to be dealing with a series of if statements that are not necessarily mutually exclusive, and this is usually the case if we're using a lot of greater thans or less thans. It's just natural that a bunch of them could all be true at the same time, and that can cause some really interesting problems. So let's go ahead and check one of those out. My favorite example here. Before we get into that, let's create a new file. We're going to call it, let's go with album sales. So retail sales is a good it's a good example for these kinds of decision-making processes. And if I go here, public class album sales. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with that today. And then public static void name string args. And let's say we have an artist, and we're grouping our albums by artist, and we're going to record the number of sales. Let's go with my favorite, James Brown, and he sold 1,500,000. I think that's right. 500,000 units. Good. And then, so what happens in our inventory system is everything gets put into a category based on its sales. Let's say 1 million in sales or more is going to be a top seller. 500,000 or more is going to be a good seller. Let's say 100,000 or more is going to be an average seller. And anything under 100,000, we're going to put that into a category called needs review, and we're going to consider discontinuing that album if it's selling less than 100,000. So the way we set that up is we will go string, let's set a category, and we'll set that equal to an empty string at first. And then if, we'll say units is greater than or equal to 1 million, then we're going to set category equal to top seller, and then if units is greater than or equal to 500,000, C1, put an extra 0 in there. So if that's the case, category, and we'll set that equal to good seller, and then if units, let's say, are greater than or equal to 100,000, going to category is going to be, let's call that average. And then if units are less than, if units are less than 100,000, we're going to set category needs review. And let's set up a print statement so we can check to make sure that everything's working properly. And let's go with name. And let's set up an equal sign. And then the category. So we're going to print out all that. So if I hit F6 here, what's going to happen is James Brown gets set to average seller. And the issue with that is, well, James sold 1.5 million, which is way over the top seller mark. So here's what the problem is that this code's going to run top down. Yes, I meet this condition, so category does get set to top seller, but then I'm also greater than 500,000, so I get set to good seller, and yet again I'm also greater than $100,000, so or 100,000, so I get set to average seller as this runs top down, and I eventually end up with average seller because that's the last condition that I meet. I don't meet less than 100,000 because I'm much more than that, so I don't get needs review. So the reason that's happening is that none of these conditions are mutually exclusive, so we have to kind of set them and tell Java that we want them to be mutually exclusive by using the else if. So if I go else if, and here instead of doing any of this I can just say else. And then James Brown gets the category that he so richly deserves, which is a top seller. So you got to think of the else if as something that's going to make the condition before it mutually exclusive. So this else only run, the else part of this means only if this is not true, we're going to run this if condition and we're going to check if that's true. And if that one's not true, only if this one's not true, we're going to get past this else and run this if condition. And it'll go down until it finds one that's true. And as soon as it finds one that's true, it's going to stop right there and give us the output that we deserve. So with a program like this, you would want to set it in descending order. And there may be a time when you want to set it in, there are maybe times when you want to set it in ascending order or descending order. It depends on how you want the designations to work as you work top down. But you'll figure that out as you go along. And that is a really good practical example of how you use the else if.